The NYSL major, the fourth major of the year, is in the books. And I'll be honest, guys, I'm thinking one thing and one thing only. And I'm thinking thieves. Now, normally, if you guys watch my other tier list, we do like the D tier, C, B, A, S, whatever. This time, we're going to do it just a little bit differently. All right, we're going to have the favorites for the event, for CoD champs, the teams that not only myself, but a lot of you out there probably will agree are the favorites to win this event. Then we have the contenders, okay? Teams that I wouldn't be surprised if they did win. Then we have the dark horses. If they have a Cinderella story, they have a miracle run. Maybe they clutch up in a couple round 11s, game 5s, whatever the case may be. And then we also are going to have the teams that are just happy to be there, right? Where I just don't think that they have a shot no matter how it goes. I know Vanguard is Vanguard, but I just don't think they really have a shot at winning this event. Now, getting into the tier list, as you guys can see, I also do have a seasons over tier. Those 4 teams are just in no order. Doesn't really matter, but it is the Paris Legion, Los Angeles Guerrillas, Florida Mutineers, and the Minnesota Rocker. Unfortunately for them, Major 4 was their final Vanguard event. Honestly, it might be fortunate for them because Vanguard is not the best game. So they're probably, at the very least, they have a silver lining where they don't have to play Vanguard anymore. But they also miss out on a chance to compete for not only a ring, but a shit ton of money. And then in the happy to be there tier, I'll be honest, I think it's just one team, and it's going to be the Boston Breach for me. And I don't know if you guys are going to agree with that, but from what I've seen, not only at Major 4 and in the qualifiers, just the entire year. Now, I know they have Vivid in place of Capsule, but this is a team that they just don't have as much firepower as they need, in my eyes. It's not like they have bad players. I think their team is solid and they do have good players on their team. But when we're talking about the top dogs, they can't ego chow the likes of LAT, NYSL, FaZe, Optic. They just can't. Okay. They have to play a very ratty play style, a very disciplined play style, to kind of be annoying to those teams, right? But they can't just go toe-to-toe, gun for gun with them, in my opinion. I don't think that they have a deep enough map pool to really win this event, and they're not very well-rounded. And then for the dark horses, I am going to have 2 teams in that tier. The first one is going to be the London Royal Ravens. Now, London's such a weird team for me because they started out the season hot. Okay, they looked great in Major 1 qualifiers. They played pretty solid in Major 1. They ended up getting 3rd place. It was their highest placing all year. And then Gizmo, he took a step down, went back home. I know he was having some personal issues and whatnot. So they lost him for a little bit and he came back and he's back now. But they haven't moved me as of late. And this time period, the stage 4 qualifiers and the Major 4, this is when you really want to be hitting that next gear. Okay, you really want to be performing well, kind of getting that confidence within yourself, your team, and just getting into this rhythm, right? Gaining some momentum going into the big one. London played great in the qualifiers, but then they go into the Major and they just get double first rounded. They lost 3-2 to both Toronto and LAG. Toronto was in winner's bracket, they dropped down loser's bracket, and they lose to an LAG team, which, nothing against them. LAG did win a major this year, but this is a team that isn't even going to champs. They didn't qualify to go to champs, and this has kind of been a trend for them. Now, I don't want to pick on personal players because at the end of the day, it's not just one player that, causes the team to lose or perform poorly. At least majority of the time. But Gizmo, he has a pretty big difference in his online to LAN gameplay. And the stats back that up. Now, I don't know if that is because maybe his play style and London's play style works a lot better online when it comes to, the internet and the ping and all that. Or if maybe he gets a little bit nervous when he's not in the comfort of his home or their headquarters where it's just them. There's a live crowd, there's a lot going on. I don't know which one it is or if it's a mix of both, but he has a pretty big difference in his KD from online to LAN. And London just looks like a different team on land from what we see when they play online. But I don't know. I'm not confident that they can beat multiple of the top teams. Like, would I be surprised if they beat any team at this major? No. Like, I could see them beating LAT. I could see them beating NYSL. I could see them beating Optic, beating FaZe. The issue is I can't see them in one event beating multiple of these teams. But who knows? If things are going right, okay, the teamwork is on point at Champs during that weekend. They're clutching up. Maybe they can make a run. But we'll just have to wait and find out. And the next team joining them are actually major winners this year. It's going to be the Seattle Surge. Okay, they just won an event not too long ago. The very last major they won. And while they played great at that major, it seems like they just completely regressed. And I mean, at the stage 3 qualifiers, they went 4-1, went into the major, and now they didn't play, I guess, the greatest competition there, but not faulting them. The very first round, they went 3-2, round 11 with NYSL. Now, Major 3 was the event that NYSL got double rounded. And who knows how that tournament could have went if Seattle Surge didn't win in that round 11. But they clutched up there. Then they went on to beat a Florida team that isn't at Champs before winning versus FaZe 3-2 and then playing them in the finals again and winning 5-3. Now, they obviously won the tournament and they look great. Pred looked great. Sib looked great. I mean, the whole team did. My issue, though, is they are just wildly inconsistent. They might be one of the most inconsistent teams that we have that's going to be competing at Champs. To really win and be consistent, okay, to be a consistent contender, consistent top team, or a consistent champion, right? You have to have two modes that you are very good in, almost dominant in. Now, Seattle Surge is dominant in control, but their hardpoint in their S&D is very bang average. Now, that's going to be an issue because, yes, they could still beat any of these teams in hardpoint S&D, but when the odds aren't on your side, you rely so much on that map 3, that control, to where unless you're up 2-0 and that's like the decider, that's the icing on top, it's really not something to be confident in because you're either down 0-2 and you win that and you're like, damn, now we still have to win a hardpoint S&D, or it's 1-1 and you go up 2-1, but you're like, damn, we still have to win a hardpoint or an S&D. And I don't know what it is with the Seattle team because they have great players on their team, but they can't put it together consistently in my eyes. And then moving on to the contenders, we also have two teams here. The first one is going to be Optic Gaming. Now, Optic is not a favorite. I don't think anyone can say that they are a favorite right now with their current form because, being quite honest, they just don't look that great. Now, I still think that they probably are a top 4, top 5 team. They just got 4th at the major, but their form is not where it needs to be. And I think the biggest issue with this team is their pacing. Now, I know Illy obviously had the hand issue, so he was out, right? They had to play a little bit with General, a little bit with Prolu. Illy's back, and he looked solid. Like, Illy didn't look bad at all for kind of being away. But something that I noticed, especially when you compare them, right, to the phases, the NYSLs, the LATs, even if you want to throw Toronto in there, but I think Toronto has a little bit less firepower than the other three, is their pacing is really off, and I think you can see it affecting Shotzi. And what I mean by that is, so, okay, just to break their team down, you have Dashy, who is a slower AR player. And I don't want to hear anyone in the comments say, you think Dashy's a slow AR player? You're drunk. Yes. Ask any pro in the league, and they will tell you that. And it's not a shot, okay? Octane's slower. Arcity's is slower. Methods is slower. Accuracy's slow. It's not like, oh, if you're slow, you're bad. That's not the case here. But Dashy is a slow AR player, okay? And then they have Scump, who is a slow sub player, okay? Illy is kind of like in the middle for me. I think his pacing is pretty solid. But then you have Shotzi, right? What I think is happening compared to the first major that they won and they look dominant in is other teams have really figured out, the best way to play Vanguard, right? But they're also putting a lot more pressure on the Optic players. And what's happening is because if you look from the first major to now, even on the qualifiers, it doesn't matter, online, whatever, Scump and Shotzi have progressively gotten worse. Now, I'm not saying that they're performing bad, but they've gotten worse from that first major, the one that they won. And I think a lot of it comes down to Shotzi is trying to do too much now. Like Shotzi, for a long time, I had him as, front runner in the MVP race. But as of late, he just hasn't been performing well. And I feel like it's because he's trying to do too much. He's spreading himself too thin. And that's because there's just a lot of pressure on this Optic team in game. I mean, probably out of game as well from the fans and everything like that. But they just aren't adapting as fast as they need to be. And even though I'm saying all this negative stuff about them, I still think they're a contender. Because like I said, even at their absolute worst, they're still top 4, top 5 at the worst team in the game. But can they beat multiple of these top teams? Yes, if they can figure out their pacing issues. So for right now, for the rest of the year, I have them as a contender, but I do not think that they are a favorite going into this event. And the other team joining them is going to be the Toronto Ultra. And this Toronto Ultra team, they're so confusing to me, because they started off the year great, okay, in the exhibition event, whatever, went through a really bad slump, then they started to look good again, and then they kind of fell off in this qualifiers, and they ended up playing okay, I would say, at this major. But they're just a very gritty team. Okay, they're a very gritty team. Like, they're a hard team to beat, even at their worst. I think that they still are a very solid team. But for me, similarly to Optic, I feel like their pacing and how they want to approach the game is just so, it doesn't work. Like, they have great teamwork, but they have players like Kleenex and Cammy who are very aggressive, and then they have players like Insight and Bance, which they are more methodical, slower players. But there's just something about this team. Like I said, I think that this team can make a run. I really do, just because they have that dog in them, right? They have that DNA of really just being able to kind of clutch up and make situations that you would think, oh, the Toronto definitely lost this map, they lost, blah, blah. They could turn it into their favor. But they have to get on the same page. Gonna need to see some more consistency individually out of them as well. That's something that both them and Optic have going for them, that were issues going for them right now. But I think that they are contenders. I do think that they are in a better spot from what I've seen on LAN recently, to really make a run and, potentially win COD champs. And then for the favorites, this should be no surprise. It is the last 3 teams of the 8. It's going to be the Atlanta FaZe, NYSL, or New York Subliners, and the Los Angeles Thieves. These 3 teams are by far the 3 best teams in the game right now. LAT, that should be no surprise. Don't even try and call me biased, okay? Because they looked phenomenal, not only in this major, but just in the whole stage in general. Like, I know that they went 3-2 in the qualifiers online where they're playing from Los Angeles, but they easily could have went 4-1, 5-0. And this is the best that they've looked all year. I said it even in the qualifying because they just looked well-rounded. LAT just simply has one of the deepest map pools in the league right now, and I think it showed at the qualifiers and at the major. And they just won. They're feeling great. Kenny looked great. The whole team looked great. They finally started getting kills and not getting outslayed. And you saw the difference that it made. And then with NYSL, I mean, it's the same thing. NYSL is a very gritty team. I know at the last major, they got rounded and they played good in the qualifiers. And in this one, they played great in the qualifiers. And, they made it all the way to the finals. They beat LAT in the winners finals. This team, though, they have a lot going for them. They're very interesting team because they're very aggressive in your face. I mean, even Krim as the main AR is probably the most aggressive main AR we have that is going to be competing at COD champs. But they're very gritty, very trade heavy, and they just understand how to play Vanguard really well. I think that they could easily win COD champs. I think that they can beat any team that is there. The only thing I'm worried about for them is, similarly to other teams, their inconsistency. Because NYSL is one of, if not the best hardpoint team in the game, but the other two modes, it really just kind of depends on the day from what I've seen. Now, I think that they can beat any team in S&D and any team in Control, but you don't want to just rely on one mode being that dominant. Regardless, they're still a favorite in my eyes. They looked great at their own major, and I think they're going to use that momentum going forward. They have a interesting matchup, and I think their side of the bracket is kind of tough, but they can make a run. They can make a run, and they can win the whole damn thing. And then lastly, we have the Atlanta FaZe. I don't really need to say much about them. I mean, look, 4 majors. They were in the finals in 3 of them, got 3rd at the last one, which I thought I really thought once LHC lost to NYSL, there was a good chance that FaZe could beat them and just go 4 for 4 at being in every single final in the major. But no matter what, this Atlanta FaZe team has to be a favorite for 2 reasons. One, because every single event this year we've had a different winner, and Atlanta FaZe hasn't won one yet. So if we follow the trend, there's only so many teams that are there, and if I'm betting man, I'm choosing them over London, I'm choosing them over Boston, and I'm choosing them over Toronto. NYSL, they're probably on the same page as, but they have unbelievable talent, man. And it's like, no matter what, if they look unbelievable or they look really bad, they're still finding a way to be in the top 3, which is something to be, I don't want to say happy about, but their level of consistency. Like, I think this Atlanta FaZe team, no matter what, will be in the top 3 at CoD Champs. Like, I'm more confident in them making it to the top 3 than any other team that is competing. I truly am. They just have to put it together for a weekend, and I mean, this would be hell of a weekend if they just won one event all year and it was CoD Champs. I don't think they would care that much. They would be going back to back since they are the reigning CoD champions. But those are my favorites. Those are my contenders. Those are my dark horses. And those are my teams. Well, team that is happy to be there. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of the tier list. And I'm going to do my best to upload as much as I can. I know I've been inconsistent, but we're going to get back on track. I appreciate you guys being patient. And thank you as always for the love. I'll see y'all when I see y'all.